You can all join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thanks for being here. It's Tuesday. How are we with discipline? Who lacks discipline? I don't know if I saw your hand first because you're in the front row, or if it just went up quicker than everybody else's. You know?
I know myself.
You know yourself. Who else lacks discipline? I think there were a lot of hands behind you. Why?
Because we're human.
Because we're human. Yeah.
Because those neural pathways weren't that developed when I was a young one. And it's quite hard to break into that role the older I get. But I try.
So for those who didn't hear that, we're blaming it on the neural pathways. Which is true. But, we'll simplify it. What else?
Discipline is hard.
Discipline is hard. Why?
It's uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable?
It requires discipline.
Say again. Such a brilliant crowd we have. Discipline requires discipline. What else? Yeah.
Discipline is a practice.
It's a practice.
Requires commitment.
Commitment.
There's a lot of craving and desire.
A lot of craving and desire. Back to that human thing, Animals have craving and desire too.
We like pleasure and we like to have fun.
We like pleasure, we like to have fun. We like to suffer.
Sometimes.
Fair enough.
Lots of distractions around.
A lot of distractions.
Discipline requires us to step out of our comfort zone.
Step out of our comfort zone.
I feel we also must acknowledge some of the negatives of discipline.
You feel we must acknowledge, or you feel you must acknowledge something?
There's at least two of me in here.
Yeah, so the two of you, yes, go ahead.
Well, I mean, every vice seems to be a virtue, every virtue a vice, depending on how you look at it and how much extremes it's in, right? Like middle pathway, like discipline can be overused to the point of extreme, just like everything else.
Yes, it could.
And opening up part of your life for spontaneity, beginner's mind, and the undisciplined is something that I think is quite important as well.
I'm just filtering through I'm working on discipline right now in my response, but spoken very beautifully. as a reflection of why discipline is so difficult. So all of you who struggle with discipline, which is many people in this room, how many of you can watch Netflix for 8 hours straight and not even move? That requires a lot of discipline. How many of you can just power through like 2 pizzas or whatever it is? That's just, yeah. So our discipline is something that I think we all have. It's just, we're very selective with it. And we like to very often rationalize and justify why we lack it or where we struggle with it. But in our lives, if you look honestly, we all have a tremendous capabilities for discipline. We're just not always so skillful at when we apply it. And if you look at very basic, like textbook 101 Buddhist teachings, the reason we struggle and suffer and get sad and angry and depressed and anxious and all these types of things is because we lack mental and emotional discipline. It's pretty simple. Now, this solves nothing for any of us in this room, but it helps us understand that if we can cultivate discipline in so many ways, our lives will alter drastically. And in the notion of this being the intro to Buddhism and meditation class, I'm going to err on the side of looking at discipline that's required for us to be healthy. And yeah, I actually 100% agree. We can, too extreme in many cases with discipline as well, which can become unhealthy. Absolutely. But in most cases, for most people, if you begin to reflect honestly and look at any of the difficulties you're having in your life, there's a sense of discipline that's missing that could really change things for you. So this is not an answer to anything. This doesn't solve any, problems. But I think it's helpful to, reflect on. And even as when we start meditation here, and I'll say what I'll say, and, we'll be focused on our breath for about 2.5 seconds, and then our mind will wander. And as it wanders, if it's going to wander, maybe wander to, honestly, areas in your life where you lack discipline on a spiritual path. Because the awareness of this is really critical and becomes the foundation of where spiritual practice starts. The honesty and the reflection on where we lack discipline in our lives becomes super important. Think of it as like a springboard, like a jumping off or jumping into exploring the nature of our minds, is to really see it and get to know it. So, yeah. Well, thanks for sharing. It's nice to sit with such a disciplined crowd on this Tuesday evening. Is there anyone here? I should say this: is there anyone here who thinks they have tremendous discipline, like really good at it? Not one. I mean, come on.
I'm getting better.
We got a half, and we got a getting better. You want to expand? We got another half. If we put you all together, we got like 1.5 hands. Do you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I find I'm very disciplined with my exercise routine. Like I always work out and do my cardio the first thing and get my mindset right.
Right.
But then I also lack areas of discipline, like in terms of being behind the computer and typing essays or stuff like that.
But you're at least recognizing where you have discipline as a strength.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
I do know what I wanted. Now I do. So I'm able to focus on what I want to be disciplined on.
Great. I saw that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, at first, I focus on the discipline that I desire or crave, and sort of like I feel like overlook the discipline that I do have. I do have discipline, but
Yeah.
somehow I didn't practice gratitude when you first asked the question.
Yeah, makes sense. Eddie, I think, did you give me a,
Yeah, I kind of agree with what the people in front of me said. I find myself very disciplined, except for, every now and then you get kind of burned out and you need some spontaneity, so.
yeah. Good stuff. All right. So we'll start with the meditation practice. For those who are joining virtually, glad you're here. Thanks for sitting with us. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen. Feel free to say hello. If you have any questions when we get there, feel free to share those as well. So we'll start with the meditation practice. For those who are maybe brand new or sitting with me for the first time, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are we doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit and breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders. Again, hands on the knees or lap. I'll guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. And again, for those who are new, you're not trying to shut off your mind. You're not trying to think nothing. You're not trying to go blank. We're just going to sit and breathe. I'll say things periodically to bring you back to present moment or to wake you up because you've fallen asleep. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders. Jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in breath in. Breathing out. Follow breath out. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting. Breathing. with the body still, rested. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. Most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered. why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in and where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. With a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not always an easy practice. Not always a fun practice. It's definitely not the escape that we often think it is. It's direct perception into the present moment and being with life as it arises. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. This is your karma. Not what goes around comes around, not getting what you deserve, but what you bring into the world. Your thoughts, your words, your actions are incredibly important. And that's this practice. So we slow down, take some time to sit and breathe, to allow things to hopefully settle. So then we can actually become aware of where we lack discipline in our lives and why we lack discipline in our lives. And then be honest about it. Not easy at all. But suffering sucks. And most people don't show up to places like this because everything in their life is perfectly peaceful and happy. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it's a practice. So, with that, I'll pause. For me, I really do just prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind. And for those joining virtually, again, welcome. Feel free. There's a chat box on your screen. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to put them in there. I'll do my best to respond. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this evening for questions. Yeah.
I had a weird experience. So I was trying to keep my eyes slightly open
Yeah.
for meditation for the first time, more of the Zen methodology, because Kyle was telling me about it.
Yeah.
And then once the meditation was over, I still to this point I can't see. It's like all blurry. I can't see anything past like the guy in front of me.
Yeah.
Are there other like physical reactions that could happen from meditation? Like I wasn't expecting this.
So, like, are your eyes just dry?
I don't know. I can see like in front of me, but like you are totally blurry.
Great. I don't know. Maybe you're finally seeing things clearly.
I'm more so curious because like I know sometimes when you're meditating too, you see like people lose their balance and they kind of like move. But are there, I guess, other physical body reactions to meditation? that-
Sure.
you know,
Yeah, I think, with things like that, it's such a personal experience. And for me, I really suggest not necessarily to look at these, and I don't take your question this way, I'm just rambling, but for everybody, not necessarily to take these as like a good reaction, a bad reaction, a right reaction, a wrong reaction, a usual reaction, an unusual reaction, a normal reaction. That was just your reaction. I don't know why. What I would suggest is, one, hopefully your full vision comes back. Please don't drive. And I think it's super important to just, for the next couple times here, continue that practice to see, like, okay, well, was this just because I tried it once? And, I'm not an eye doctor, maybe your vision staring 3 feet in front of you for 20 minutes then altered, your perception further away. So I would just try it a few more times and see what's going on there. But could just be different for you. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
What is one area in your life you feel very disciplined in, and what's one area that could use improvement?
One area of my life that I feel very disciplined in, and one area that could use improvement. One area. I'm really good with discipline. Truly. I'll get to where I could use improvement, but I don't want to, discount that. But discipline for me, since I was a little kid, I've always been incredibly disciplined. That has nothing to do with like Buddhist practice. It just so happens that one of the paramitas, generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom, just so happens coming into this practice, at least one of them I was really good at it. I'll probably answer your question directly in a minute, but I just want to say this. But for most of my life, even though I had a tremendous amount of discipline, much of my discipline was not wise or skillful or healthy. If I set my mind to doing something, I would not stop until it was done. That requires a tremendous amount of discipline. And so much of that discipline is still with me today. I mean, really, all of it. The biggest shift for me with practice was understanding, is my discipline, going back to your earlier comment, is it skillful? Is it wise? Is it harmful? And I think determining where to kind of keep pressing on the gas and where to maybe step off a little bit is important. I think one area, to your question, one area of my life where I'm really strong and disciplined is, I'm trying to think how to phrase this, but I'm really good at having the discipline to recognize danger and what's going to be or potentially be really unhealthy for me or a situation. And to me, that requires a tremendous amount of discipline with regards to honestly knowing the way your mind works. Years ago, I'll never forget, this is probably like 15 years ago, maybe even longer, 15, 17, doesn't matter, but a while ago. And I was walking with a friend somewhere. And all of a sudden, it was nighttime, going from one place to another. And all of a sudden, it was like something going on, like a block away. we didn't know what it was. It was chaos. There were sirens. There was a lot going on there. And we were walking side by side. And as we kind of got to the point where we recognized there was a lot going on, I started to speed up to walk towards it. And I turned to my buddy. He wasn't there. He went that way. And what I learned in that moment, I always reflect on that, because going back to my earlier kind of the way I introduced this, is that I was never really good at understanding what would be potentially harmful or dangerous. But the discipline to get to know the way your mind works, if you don't begin to cultivate that, this practice is you're just going to flounder. I hate to put it like that, but we have to have the discipline to understand exactly how our mind works. And what can be healthy or unhealthy for us. And that, to me, comes from a dedicated meditation practice of watching thoughts, letting them pass, watching thoughts. And when you do that day in and day out, year after year after year, you begin to see patterns of how your mind works. And then it's so difficult, those damn neural pathways again. That's no joke. And it is so difficult to break free from those. And I think where I, lack discipline is, after watching 2 hours of Netflix, I'd really love to just 100% have the discipline to say, I don't care where they left me hanging, I'm done. And not getting pulled into another hour. Not the end of the world, but I'd sure as heck rather have that hour of sleep. So, I don't know. Ask me tomorrow, I'll say something totally different. Yeah. Do you have a question? Yep, you. Yep. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm worried about.
Oh, sorry. No, you're good. Yeah, your hands went up kind of the same time. So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I'm good for now.
Oh, you're good. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm bisexual.
Okay.
Thing is, the best sex I've ever had is with females, but I'm
Okay.
more sexually attracted to men. Was I born bisexual, or did I become I don't really care for an answer, but I just would like to know your thoughts.
Yeah,
or
I have no idea how you were born. Those are my thoughts. I don't know how you were born. I don't know how any of us were born. I don't know how I was born. I don't remember it. I think whatever feelings, whatever attractions, whatever emotions, whatever love or not that arises in people is different for everybody. And I think most importantly around this topic is that personally, why does it matter? That's my personal view. I don't care if somebody was born that way or not, or if they became that way or not. What matters is, are you honest with yourself? And can you live your life to where you're not concerned about what other people think? Ultimately, why you are a certain way has no bearing on who you are. I do caution, not just around this, but on any topic. If somebody says to you they know exactly why you are the way you are, to me, that's a major red flag to go somewhere else. If somebody tells you that the way you are is wrong or not okay, that's a major red flag to go somewhere else. But yeah, just be kind to yourself and whatever that turns into is what it turns into.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yep, you again. Yeah, sorry. Tell me your name. What's your name?
I'm Chris.
Chris. Yes, Chris has a question.
When I ran into Mara and I was looking into Buddhism a lot, I kind of found myself having a hard time like grasping that or looking at that differently than like the idea of like Satan or something. And using it as kind of like a construct to try to like dissociate my own negative thoughts. How do you utilize the Mara aspect?
I use Mara every day in my life. I see so many, and don't take this the wrong way, you can take it however you want. I see so many people, places, and things as Mara. Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. Hang on. Sorry, I should have started there. Thank you very much. Mara, and I just said I'll get to that in a minute. Let me start with what Mara is. Let me back up. Since you did compare Mara to Satan, I feel we should, explain this a little bit. So I can't talk about Satan, but Mara in the story of the Buddha's awakening, right? So here's Siddhartha. He's a prince. He leaves home at 29. He roams the base of the Himalayan mountains for 6 years. 35 years old, he sits down and says, I'm not moving until I figure out why we suffer. And during these 21 days, while sitting under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, India, he is challenged, and this is the story. And whatever story you read, there's 1,000 of them, and they're all different. But give or take, he's challenged by Mara. And in the story, Mara is his mind. But I should say Mara is his mind, but in the story, Mara is like a person. And Mara begins to challenge him. He's sitting in meditation, and Mara throws arrows at him. And instead of getting up and running away or ducking or whatever, he simply puts his hand up. The arrows turn to lotus petals, fall away. Mara begins to rain hail, thunderstorm down on him. And instead of moving, he sits. A king cobra called a naga comes up with 7 heads, covers him and protects him. Mara begins to dance his beautiful daughters in front of him to try to tempt him with desire and lust. Mara's just not even phased, they turn to stone. Or the Buddha's not even phased, they turn to stone. And at the end, Mara says, who bears witness to you defeating me? And Siddhartha at the time simply touches the earth to show the earth as his witness. And the earth trembled and shook. Mara got frustrated and went away. So he defeated Mara. Mara is his mind. Mara is what causes all of our suffering. It's great in a story form because what do we get to do in a story form? We get to blame it on somebody else. But in reality, it's you. Your mind is Mara. So, again, I'm not going to get into the whole Satan thing, but your mind is Mara. And so for me as a practice, it's actually similar to my comments earlier about recognizing danger. Danger to me is Mara. Situations, people, places, things that will cause you to make unskillful, unwise choices is Mara. Because Mara is the cause of your suffering. So if we can begin to recognize, hopefully as early as possible, what people, places, and things are going to really be unhealthy for us, toxic for us, dangerous for us, unsafe for us, then we don't bring those into our lives. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Pay attention to Mara every day, all day. Does that help?
Perfect.
Yeah, sure.
How does Mara compare to your ego?
How does Mara compare to your ego? Katie, maybe I got what you got because now my left eye's kind of funky, so it's all right. Appreciate you passing that on. How does Mara compare to your ego? Mara's, your ego is what creates Mara. Your ego is not Mara. Your ego creates Mara. Your ego is what tempts you. All the craving, all the desire, all the dissatisfaction that we have throughout our day, we seek and crave more. our greed, our anger, ignorance, all that we are throughout our day is driven by our ego. It says, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, I need more of this, I need more of that, I want this, I want that. That's all ego. And so Mara becomes alive. So the practice of non-self, the practice of cutting through, not destroying your ego, not shattering your ego, but understanding your ego and being gentle and kind with it and realizing how it can be skillful. I know years ago when early in practice, I was like, I'm just going to destroy my ego and that's going to be good. Well, how egotistical is it for me to think that I can destroy my ego? Like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. That's your ego trying to destroy your ego. And then what are you going to do? Call your buddies and be like, yo, guess what? I shattered my ego today. Check me out. So ego creates Mara, I think. Yeah. Okay.
So
Oh, that's great. Please. No, I'm going to, go ahead.
I should just put my glasses on and everything. That's just mostly sound.
Go ahead.
So the way I've been using Mara, is to try to kind of separate those thoughts from myself, so that I can kind of observe it.
Yeah.
With a little more dissociation, a little more objectivity. Is that active?
Absolutely helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. It's important to understand through Buddhist practice and meditation specifically is that your thoughts, as you're saying, when you say separate yourself, that's a good step. But I'm just going to introduce another way to look at it, which is it's almost like with your glasses off, you realize that you want to separate yourself from your thoughts. When you put your glasses on and you begin to see clearer, you recognize you don't have to separate yourself from your thoughts because your thoughts are not you. No separation is required. It's just the knowledge and wisdom to understand that your thoughts are not you. If we begin to think that those thoughts are me, those thoughts are real, then we're like, okay, I have to fight against them or ignore them or play into them, whatever it is. But if we see the thoughts in the Diamond Sutra, they talk about just dreams, bubbles, and illusions. If we see our thoughts as just poof, nothing to separate from. Does that make sense?
That's great.
Not easy to do, but you know. Okay.
That kind of goes to what my question was, because if your mind, when you're meditating and when you're practicing, and your mind is having all these thoughts and you're trying to kind of just recognize them and let them go.
Yeah.
What is it that's trying to recognize them and let them go if it's not the mind?
Ah, we're finally getting somewhere. That's a great question. Next question. And who is going to answer that?
Another body.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the voice inside my head when I talk to myself or think about anything, is that my consciousness? Is that me?
So
Is that me in another dimension? Or like, what is that?
the question was, the voices in my head that talk to me, is that me? Is that my consciousness? Is that another dimension? That's your question.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. My suggestion, very honestly, is and you're not the only one in this room that has voices in your head, I'm just saying this to you because you asked the question, but my suggestion, very honestly, is for people that do have voices in their head, should seek professional help.
Not voices. I just like my voice, but in my head. Does that make sense?
So, well, are you talking about thoughts or are you talking about hearing voices? These
No,
are two
not
different
voices.
things.
Like my thoughts.
Okay, so your question then is, are your thoughts really you?
Yeah.
So Buddhist teaching, very fundamental technical Buddhist teachings is there's no inherent you. You are just this temporary coming together of causes and conditions, physical form. You're here for a period of time and then you will cease to exist. So the you that you think is you is not you. You exist physically, you're here, we're all sitting here, but we all exist very differently from how we perceive ourselves to be. There's a Buddhist sutra called the Surangama Sutra, where he talks about the Buddha asking a disciple to find the nature of his mind, or to find his mind, I should say. Never finds it. It's not his. So, yeah. My suggestion, very honestly, based on, the whole 5 minutes that I've known you and your 2 questions, is to don't think so much. Don't analyze so much. Work on kindness. Work on compassion. Work on helping others. That's the practice. Yeah. The idea of trying to wrestle with all the stuff in our head and trying to make Buddhism this that it's going to solve everything for you or answer all your life's deepest, questions or solve all the greatest mysteries in the world is meaningless. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. That's hard enough, folks. Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question
Yeah.
about physical pain.
Hmm.
Starlight, how you were talking about, being present in the meditation and not, I don't know if you said this, but not being in the past and not being in the future, being present with it. So, as far as physical pain and pain in general, how do you play meditation into that? I mean,
It's the most present thing there is. Breathing in, I feel pain. Breathing out, I feel pain. Breathing in, my leg hurts. Breathing out, my leg hurts. Breathing in, my back hurts. Breathing out, my back hurts. Meditation doesn't, not that you're asking it this way, but meditation doesn't fix physical pain, doesn't cure physical pain. I talked about this, I think it was just Saturday, but there's a beautiful teaching called the second arrow. Were you here when I said that? No. You know the teaching.
I know a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's in brief, for those who never heard it, the first arrow is physical pain. The second arrow is anger, that you're in physical pain. Then you're sad because you're angry, because you're in physical pain. Now you're depressed because you're sad, because you're angry, because you're in physical pain. So now you've taken physical pain and you've added on sadness, anger, and depression. Just be in physical pain. I wish it fixed it. I wish it cured it. I wish it was that simple. But we get a lot of people around here with chronic pain. And as we age, the Buddha taught very clearly, we got birth, we get aging, we get sickness, we get death. Guaranteed. None of us can escape it. So stop wasting time dealing with meaningless stuff that makes you miserable. Yeah.
So for the idea of nirvana, then, it's not so much to get rid of the first arrow, but the second and third and so on arrows.
The first arrow is nirvana, as is the second arrow, as is the third arrow, as is the fourth arrow.
What are these arrows you speak of?
They're just metaphors for shit that comes at us that we don't like.
Well, I feel like for viparinama dukkha, or like suffering due to the impermanence, we can never get rid of impermanence. It's always going to be there.
Samsara is nirvana, nirvana is samsara.
I understand.
You didn't get to that page yet. You're too busy trying to convince you what nirvana is and what samsara is, and then eventually you realize that samsara is nirvana, suffering is liberation, liberation is suffering. It is only the attachment to the sense of self that separates them. All you have to do is recognize that you yourself, Weka, are the illusion. And when you recognize that you yourself are the illusion, nirvana and samsara fall away. It's all the same. And you're simply left with sensation of breath. I think you're ready to read some Dogen. Yeah. It'll get you out of the head. Seriously. Yeah.
That helps. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the Dogen, what's Dogen?
Dogen is a Zen master he lived from 1200 to 1253, and he's the founder of what they call the Soto Zen school within Buddhism. And there's a great one book of his called Beyond Thinking, where he talks about just body and mind falling away. Again, a metaphor. Body and mind falling away and being left with nothing but sensation or breath. And for those of you in the room who like to think a lot and like to analyze a lot, like to study a lot, it's like just this mind mess. You're trying to figure all this stuff out. Just sit and breathe and be nice to people. Try that every day for like 5 years. And then you'll be ready for like the next level of Buddhist teachings.
Too much discipline.
Huh? No, I know you're being a smart ass, but you're also being serious. That's the discipline, right? Sit, breathe, be kind. If you can do that every day for 5 years, then you begin to explore a little bit more. But that is hard enough, folks. And the fact that we don't sit and breathe and spend all day long being kind to people is the reason that we get into our heads and that we want to intellectually understand everything. Buddhist practice to me has never been an intellectual, philosophical exploration. It's been a practice and a way of life. And yes, it does require discipline.
What did he say?
I don't even know.
Oh.
But it was good. We'll do one more question. Yeah, Kat.
Just can you spell it? Was it Dogen? D-O-G?
Dogen. Yeah. His main body of teaching is called the Shobogenzo, but you'll also see a lot of kind of other texts. But the book Beyond Thinking, I think that's a great, I mean, if you could even say an intro to Dogen, but I think the Beyond Thinking book by Dogen is incredible.
Is it in the bookstore?
No. Amazon. What else? We'll do one more question before we close. Yeah.
So for people who do spend a lot of time intellectualizing in their head, have hard times making decisions. I'm new here about
Yeah.
4 weeks.
Yeah.
Where does the practice start? How does the practice start to influence that? How does that start to become one rather than, well, I feel great when I'm sitting here meditating, but then I walk outside and I'm still
Right.
intellectualizing and can't make a decision because.
Yes. First, not making a decision is actually a decision. You've probably heard that before, but I just want to remind you of that. Second is, as you said, 4 weeks. Give it about 4 years. I mean that very seriously. There is no formula for, okay, how long does it take for the actual practice to influence the intellectual stuff? Or how long does the intellectual stuff actually take to influence the practice? Reading, learning about Buddhism is wonderful. I'm not trying to take that away. Thinking about all the stuff we're talking about, incredibly valuable. We have to start somewhere. And for many people, it does start that way. Intellectually thinking about this stuff, the philosophy behind it, the recognition of when I'm nice and when I'm not nice, the awareness of how people trigger me throughout the day. All these things are important to pay attention to. What I'm suggesting is, in addition to that, and for some people, instead of that, for a period of time, wake up, is to just go do good things. The only way that you're going to get the answer to that question is by doing it. You've done good things in your life before, yes? And how do you feel when you do good things?
Good.
You feel good. And when you feel good, are you in this place of trying to ponder the meaning of your life, or are you just enjoying feeling good? just enjoying feeling good. In fact, very often when we're in a place of trying to ponder the meaning of our lives, it's when we're not feeling so great. You know what makes you feel great? You just told me, doing good things. So do you see there's a balance? I don't want to take away from, all you smart people who want to be intellectual and read. And I'm definitely not trying to be biased because I'm not one of those people. But for me, the way I was taught and what my master said was think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. Go help people. And do that day in and day out. Yeah. And we have opportunities every day to help people, large or small, whatever it is. People we know and love, strangers, whatever it might be. Just spend more time doing good for others and yourself as well. Taking care of yourself too. It starts there. But I do believe that a lot of people talk about self-compassion. I do think one of the greatest forms of self-compassion is to actually help people. That altruistic feeling that just consumes us and overwhelms us when we help people. We just feel so good. What an incredible free feeling. And then you're like, oh yeah, wait a minute. I don't need to keep trying to understand my crazy head. I can just help people and feel good. This is cool. Do that day in and day out, year after year, and eventually you're like, yeah, I'm good. So, yeah. All right, I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained be transferred to those who need it most. So before you all head out, we have a few quick announcements from our Dharma Bum host, John. Thanks, John.
Hello, everyone. I'm tonight's host, John. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone battling addiction. And our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 5 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We also have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. And if a few people could help shut the windows, we'd appreciate that. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again.
Thanks, John. And one last class announcement. Tomorrow night, I will be leading the final Wednesday of our loving kindness practice, and Bettina will start the following Wednesday, which is July 5th. So that'll be our new Wednesday night class. And then Travis, this will be his last Thursday leading, and then we'll have a new class following Thursday as well. So everything will just continue as normal. So.
What time tomorrow night?
Always 7 o'clock. Yeah. And I've been challenged to actually lead a real loving kindness practice, so I don't know how that's going to work, but I'll try. Thanks.